Marcieanne, Juanito, they call me in Mexico, and it is Sunday, the Lord's Day, Domingo, and I'm having a day of rest. I really am. I keep processing old videos and getting them loaded to YouTube, but I've also been dancing in the doorway here and reminiscing, and it's Peaceable Kingdom again at Juanito's Doggy Clubhouse and Cantina spot, who I now am calling Boca because she's all mouth, is sleeping here. And I was remembering this is her favorite spot. Before she ever let me pet her, before she was a member of the bitch's dorm here, she would lay on the hearth here. So that's a nice memory. And Negro, who was the first dog that I befriended here, or she befriended me, is sleeping over there. And Princess, the real queen of all these dogs, is sleeping back there. And out of the blue, I've been reminiscing a lot lately. Some of my middle class friends were not crazy about what they called my cowboy era, which started when I left Asheville, North Carolina, and went to the mountains. And out of the blue, I remembered one of my great cowboy lines. This guy says to me, in Roan Mountain, little tiny town of Roan Mountain, Tennessee, he says, "You can't stop mountain men from throwing their cigarette butts on the ground." Because I wanted him to make his place a little nicer by using coffee cans to put the cigarette butts in. He says, "You can't tell a mountain man you can't stop them from throwing their cigarette butts on the ground wherever they want to." And I said, "I'll stop them like a freight train." It surprised me. So that's got me wanting to reminisce about some of my travels, my first year on the road in the high mountains of Appalachia, western North Carolina. The whole area got so devastated by the Hurricane Helene storms on September 28th. From Asheville, North Carolina, Burnsville I think Burnsville got hammered pretty hard too, was a very prosperous city an hour north of Asheville, mountain town. That was a hybrid at that point of Appalachian folks and people from Asheville and over the southeast buying up property there. But then if you ran an hour north of Burnsville, there was Burnsville, not Barnardsville, Burnsville, Bakersville. Bakersville was at the foot of Roan Mountain, 2 hours north of Asheville. And someone on the Facebook group for Jubilee, where I used to go to church, said, "You may not want to go there, but it's where I live, and it's a really sweet town, one stoplight, and it's at the foot of Roan Mountain, and you might like it." So I ended up spending a lot of time there. 6 miles up the side of the mountain was a little hamlet of, I'll have to come up with that name, little hamlet, no stoplight, but Thomas Grocery Store. And I became really good friends with Old Man Thomas. And it was a gorgeous old-time country store with wood plank floors. And I spent a lot of time there. Actually, I got my first camper van was in the parking lot of Thomas Grocery Store. I was preparing to run way back down to Asheville to look for a camper van. A friend of mine had given me $5,000 to get off the ground. I was staying in a tent at that point. And on the day I was about to go back down to Asheville, I was sitting on the one chair. He didn't have a bench there. There was one chair outside of the grocery store, and I looked across the big parking lot, and there was this big old Ford Econoline burgundy color 88 van with this guy had written in soap, "For sale." And I owned it by the end of the day, and it became Narwhal the Whale with a turning radius like an ocean liner. And I was living in a dry county up there, a place that never had rolled back prohibition. And what they said, and I was in a conversation in Thomas Grocery Store where they were saying, yeah, well, they can't roll back prohibition because if they make alcohol legal, then all the moonshiners would be put out of business. And moonshine was still a very active thing up there. So you climbed, I think the first 6 miles you climbed 1,000 feet, but in the next 10 miles you climbed like 3,000 feet. And Roan Mountain was 6,000 foot peak. Asheville is 2,500 feet, 6,000 feet. And the Appalachian Trail comes over the top of Roan Mountain. Roan Mountain had 2 peaks, and one was a bald, a place where trees had never grown, and that was spectacular, and the Appalachian Trail went through there. You go down the other side, and right up there at the top is the state line between North Carolina and Tennessee. And once you cross into Tennessee, there's a huge, the jewel of the Tennessee State Park system is Roan Mountain State Park. I spent a lot of time there, many wonderful memories. And Marcieanne, I got to come up with her last name, was the head ranger. And she was a really sweet woman and a tough cop, pistol packing mama. And I saw a statistic up there that national park, state and national park rangers get shot in the line of duty more than city cops. I think that I have to check that data, but I think that's true. So she was tough, but we loved each other. And the way I met her was I went up to the park office and said, I want to have a conversation with the head ranger here. Well, she'll be back in about 20 minutes. She's looking into a parking issue. There's some kind of a car parked outside of the parking lot under a tree by a picnic bench. I said, well, that would be my car. That would be my car because it was hot and sunny. And I saw this spot that was shady. So I went back down there and we had a little conversation about why she shouldn't write me a ticket. And we had many conversations about rules because she was a cop, one of many cops I developed great relationships with in several years on the road, 4 years on the road. There were like 5 different cops, sheriffs, head ranger like her, that gave me their personal cards and said, if you ever have any trouble, have people call me. So I loved her. And so that would have been like June or July of 20 that I first met her up there. And the instance where, so if you run out of the park down to the little tiny town of Roan Mountain, Tennessee, very sweet town, had a lot of great memories there. And there was a hostel that was a very cool hostel run by an aging hippie, not quite as old as me, but he had a music hall behind the hostel. There was a gorgeous bar with lots of space, and he would put on music concerts. And he was very proud of his sound system. It had been used at a Grateful Dead concert, and he had scooped it up off of eBay or something. Beautiful sound system. And he would offer music, big concerts at his place several times a year. And he was planning another one. And I said, well, Joe, I can't quite remember his name. You know, the COVID's here now. So you're going to cram a lot of people in here. Why don't you do it outdoors? You've got great outdoor area. He says, I've done so many of these. No problem. I said, well, you haven't done one with the COVID up here in Roan Mountain. He says, there's no COVID here. And I said, could I show you the obits in the local paper? People are dying of the COVID up here. Well, he wouldn't listen to me. And the other thing I said was, it's a mess back here with all these cigarette butts. Just put around coffee cans. He says, you can't tell mountain men how to where to put their cigarette butts. And I said, you can't stop them from throwing their cigarette butts. And I said, I'll stop them like a freight train. Well, he got so mad at me that he evicted me from the property and I wasn't allowed there anymore. But I went by the day of the concert just to check out these mountain men. They were sweet Appalachian boys, the kind of guys I had become friends with again and again and again up there. And I had discovered that Once an Appalachian person realized I wasn't judging them because they knew that at the town of Asheville, all the progressives uh, despised the Appalachian people and thought of them as rednecks and dangerous, and I discovered them to be such wonderful people. So the last memory I want to say about Marcieanne, she had an Irish last name, Marcieanne. Oh, fool! This is like a 4-year-old memory now. Uh, I ran back up there right at Christmas time, right before Christmas, to to say goodbye to the people at Thomas Grocery because I was planning to head south, uh, and to see Marcieanne. And it was Christmas Eve of 2020, and she gave me Christmas cookies. It was awfully sweet. And she said, "You ought to get going. You're heading back down to Spruce Pine, which is right next to Burnsville. Uh, they're predicting bad weather this afternoon." And so I did get going. And there was a major highway. A major highway ran through Roan, the town of Roan Mountain. And I hopped on that highway, and the rain started to fall pretty hard, and the temperature was dropping. And I did just make it to the Walmart in Spruce Pine. And I'll put a link to my 5 Christmas miracles. My first big Christmas miracle was Christmas of 2020, because I woke up in the Walmart parking lot on Christmas morning, snowed in and iced in because the rain had fallen first. And my big van, the doors were ice shut. I had to throw my whole weight against the door to get out of there. And Christmas Day, the Walmarts are closed, and I was the only one in the parking lot. And you'll have to watch the miracles of my 5 Christmases. Tells the story of that day. But I wanted to capture this for me, and I hope it was interesting for you. And I'm not always a badass, but I was in the process of discovering my badass side, which has gotten badder over time. And it also makes me more loving. If I know I can protect myself or protect other people or protect dogs or protect kids, uh, then my heart opens even more because I feel safe and the people around me feel safe, unless they're one of the ones I'm fucking with. Okay, bye.